Hey everybody, welcome to Drive Thru Review 479. Today we're going to look at Quadropolis. This is a new game from Days of Wonder. First time designer, Francois Gandon. This is a city building game that has some very interesting new, very Euro-y type of mechanics. There is a kind of basic game and an advanced game which I'll talk about. I will say sort of up front that the basic game is definitely the way you should play it at first, but having played both the basic and advanced and then going back to play the basic game, to me it's kind of 6 1/2 dozen or the other. They're just kind of two different games at this point. Now definitely the basic game is a little bit easier to get into than the advanced game, but not by such a degree that you maybe wouldn't just jump in to play the advanced game. I could see a lot of people doing that. But I will cover both of those and then I will come back and tell you what I think. So here you can see the cover to Quadropolis, and I just want to show you the insert, which is pretty awesome. You got the rules, which are pretty short, and a couple of player aids and things there, and then you have this cool insert here, and you can see down here, if we zoom in, 1 2 3 4 5. Now if you're playing the basic game, you just use these 4 stacks. The advanced game uses 5. You actually play 5 rounds on that case, and they've got little spots here for the pawns and so on. Okay, here you can see most of the stuff that you get in the game. Each player is going to get a little player board like so, and you can see this is sort of the basic side, and then we can flip over here and there is the expert side. Slightly different, there's some numbering of sort of different quadrants in here, so you can see 1 2 3 4 and then 5 here, and then on the other side it just has these 4 areas, but they always have sort of rows and columns. We've got 1 2 3 4, so you're going across this way, then 1 2 3 4 also going across there, and you're going to be taking tiles from the central board and putting them out here and then doing all of your scoring at the end of the game. Now sometimes tiles will give you these cool sort of translucent meeple worker guys, and then you get these other, sometimes these cool energy cubes, and sometimes you'll need to use these to activate the different tiles, and you don't want too much energy, but you can use the parks to get rid of them, and then sometimes you need to actually have a worker to activate the tile, otherwise it won't score. Now what you do to seed these is you're going to take tiles based on the round number, so there's a bunch of round 1 tiles and so on, and depending if you're playing, let's see, this is basic, yeah, this is a classic one here. You can see there's 3 classics. If you're playing the expert mode, you'll take those out and you'll put in these experts here, and you put them in the bag and mix them up. I've got the round 2 ones in here, and then you're going to put them out. But let's pretend we're playing a 3-player game, so anything with a 4, when you take it out, you just leave it face down because it's not used in a 2 and a 3-player game. And so these have the different markings on the back, and these kind of just eat up a spot. So where a valid, usable, useful tile would be, there's that. So there's kind of a dead space there for lesser player counts. Now let's say you're the blue player and we're playing the basic game. You're going to get 1 2 3 4, and these are kind of your different workers here, and you're going to use these to capture different tiles and then place them onto your board. Now if you're playing the advanced game, you're going to turn these over, and there's all gray ones, and what you do is you just take 1 per player. So if we're doing a 2-player game, we'd have 2 1s, 2 2s, 2 3s, and 2 4s. We'd also have the 5s when you use the expert game, and these are going to go into a collective pool of gray workers that you can choose from. So when you're playing the basic game, all you've got is a 1 2 3 and a 4, whereas in the advanced game maybe you use, you know, the 2 twice or something like that, because you're drawing from a collective pool. Now how do you actually get the tile? Well, let's say we went here and we wanted to use our 3, and we could put it here, and then what we're going to do is count this number 1 2 3, and then we would take this residence here, and then we would be able to put that onto our board. Or in the case if we put it, let's see, good example, we'd put it here 1 2 3, we would take this park, oops, and so on. And if you use the, you know, the 1, for example, you'd put that here and take this harbor here. Now once you put the guy there, he's going to stay there, so nobody else can come along and put, you know, another worker on top of that. The other thing that's going to happen, let's say we took this 3 here, 1 2 3, we took the park, and I'll tell you how we put it on our board in a minute. And then we're going to take this little worker black pawn here, and he's going to mark that. So now the next player, they cannot point to this pawn. So the yellow player could not come down here and try to take this because it's pointed at the pawn. They could still get this tile. Let's say instead they would use the 3 here, 1 2 3, they would take this tile, and then he would move there, and now nobody can point to that. And you just keep going around so everybody's placed all of their workers. And then you'll clear this off, add all the round 2s, round 3s, round 4s, and then you'll score at the end of the game. Now, how do you go about placing the new tiles onto your main player board? Well, you also have to consider the tile you use to actually grab it. So if you grabbed whatever tile you selected with the 4, you can put it in a few different spots. You can put it in row 4, so you can put it along here, or we can put it in column 4, so anywhere right here. So we could put it, I don't know, there, for example. Now you can also stack certain tiles. So these residential tiles you can actually stack. So if I had grabbed it with, let's say, a 2, and then I could put it in this column or this row here, so I could put it there. So let's say I put it there like that. And then if I get another one, let's say on a later turn I got it with a 2 as well, but like my 2 slots were all filled up. If it's the second in the stack, so it's going to be the number 2, level 2 high, then I can put it there no matter where it is in here. So let's say I had grabbed this one on a previous turn with a 1, and then I grabbed it on a later turn with a 2. Even though this isn't in the 2 column or row, because it's going to be the number 2 in the stack, I can do that. And same with the 3. If you used a 3, you can make it the 3rd in the stack, no matter where it is actually on the board. So these are all going to score at the end of the game in various different ways. Now sometimes there's a requirement, so you can see these here actually requires an energy cylinder, and so does this one as well. Some of them, like I told you before, actually require a worker, so this one will need a worker. And you can see some of the tiles will actually provide you with that. So these 2 harbors here give you a couple things. This one gives you 2 energy, this one gives you an energy and a worker. So when you put those out there, you'll just get those and then set them on the side like so, and you can arrange them as you want during the game and just count it at the end of the game. So how do you score all these different tiles? Well, let's talk about that. First thing you're going to do is you're going to look at the residentials, and the game comes with this player aid, which you can just basically look at and tell you the rest of the game. So if you had a stack 4 high of the residentials, you get 10 points for that stack. Now the parks here, we can see an example. I thought I grabbed the park, here it is. So let's say this park here was adjacent to a residential. That does not count diagonal. And depending on how many residential stacks it's next to, so this one's next to 4, it can get up to 11 points. Here you have these markets here, and these aren't worth any points unless you have excess workers that you place on them. So if this has 1 worker, you get a point for it. You need an energy to score it. It doesn't necessarily require a worker, but the more workers you have, up to 4, you'll get points for it. Next one you can see are these factories here. They're going to get points based on what they're next to. So if they're next to a store, then they're going to get 2 points. If they're next to these harbors, they get 3 points for each. This is all basic game stuff. And then sometimes you're going to have these special buildings here. You can see with that symbol, and it's going to give you a fixed number of points. And what you're going to want to do is have these out in each of these 4 sort of quadrants there. And you can see here, if you have 1 in each of the 4 quadrants, you get up to 14 points. And the last thing to talk about is the harbor. And if you have, let's say, a row going all the way across your board, you get 12, whereas you get less points there. And this is kind of telling you can't like reuse the same one here. So this guy here, you'd want to use them in this because it's 4 long, and not in that's 2 long. Okay, so that's all the basic scoring there. On the back side, you can see it's all repeated here again, but we've got 2 new scorings here. Now this one is the office towers, and these you can stack just like the residentials. And then we can see here, so if we just had 1 office tower all by itself and we stacked it 5 high, because remember you play 5 rounds in the expert game, you get 10 points. But if it was adjacent to another one, you get a little bit of a bonus. Or if you had 5 next to each other, they'd be worth 4 points each, and all the way up here, depending on what's next to what and how high each thing is. Now the next thing to look at is the monuments here, and here we want to not be adjacent to the factories or the harbors. It doesn't matter if we're next to the residentials or the office or anything, but we want to be next to these special buildings and the markets and the parks, and this can be worth that many points next to each of those. The other thing to keep in mind here is these parks can eat up 1 excess energy, because any excess that you have is going to be worth -1 point. So you need to manage the energies and the workers that you have on the board. There's also a little mini expansion where the parks don't do that, but they just give you an extra worker that you can choose to throw in or not. Now, one last thing about the expert mode is if we flip over this board, remember I showed you it has these different kind of zones and quadrants. That's another rule for placement. So if I took a tile with a 3, I can place it in this quadrant or in the row or column, or again on the stack if it's that level high. Okay, so that is Quadropolis. Really had a good time with this. Like I said in the intro, I've kind of gone back and forth between the basic game and the expert game. The expert game definitely is a little bit more going on. There's a lot more scoring options, and again, you're pulling from that pool of workers that's common. So there's a little bit more kind of, you know, maybe I'll take this from Billy so he doesn't get to play it kind of thing. But it doesn't really add that much complexity. It is a very interesting game. So it's like a super clever mechanic, because not only are you using the little arrows to grab the tile you want in the spot that you want it, because there's multiple ways to get at the tiles as well, because, you know, if it's on the edge here, I can get it with the 1, or from the 5 from the other side, or if it's kind of in the middle, maybe I can get it from a 2 from this side, or a 4 from this side, or whatever. So there's that, and then again, that triggers whatever number you use, kind of where you can put it on your own player board. So there's kind of like a couple levels of thinking in terms of how you grab the tile, and in like a very unique way that I've not seen. But the other thing you kind of have to juggle too is the resources and the workers, or not the resources, but the energy and the workers and all that kind of stuff, and you know how you're going to score it and everything. I will say I kind of am split on player count, because I've been thinking about this. I like it with a 2-player because you can be a little bit more proactively aggressive in terms of what you're taking and kind of see what they're doing. Whereas with more than that, there's a little bit more chaos in terms of what people are picking and all the options that are available, you know, on the table. But I like it equally with both. It just kind of plays a little differently with the 2, you know, and the 3 and 4. So it's really, really well produced. It's very quick. I would say the first time I played it, it maybe took about an hour with 3 people. I can't remember if it was 3 or 4, but it was at least 3, and it took about an hour. But every time since then, it's been under an hour easily. Playing with people that have played it before, but it's super quick. You take a tile, boom, boom, grab it, and then you're trying to set up these very simple sort of, you know, tile layouts to be the most efficient. And also, again, trying to manage that a little extra layer of the energy and the workers and all that kind of stuff like that. So it's a very, very nice kind of gateway game that kind of has these multiple modes. Like I talked about, you got the extra little kind of mini expansion, I guess, of the parks that you can swap out and kind of play with. So I think this is going to be kind of easily expandable if they do come out with that. But it's a very kind of ticket to ride sort of level of game, I think, where it's, you know, you can just jump in and say, you put the tile down, grab the tile, here's your little score sheet, you can score all these different ways. You can get a game in quickly if people don't get hung up on it and they're kind of like new gamers, let's say. But then you can play it again, and it plays so quick that people want to play it right away. So I think it's got a lot kind of going for it in that sort of ticket to ride sort of vibe that Days of Wonder tries to go for sometimes anyway. And so I think it's going to succeed a lot with folks in that way. And the one thing that was kind of interesting, we were talking about it, and it was kind of like playing like an app. It felt like an app game. So I could see this actually being an app at some point. I'm not sure if they will or not, but it kind of feels like you're playing an app because it's so quick, and it has that kind of puzzly sort of scoring kind of thing going on, but it's super friendly and not so aggressive or anything. So it has that nice kind of modern gateway thing. A lot of those kind of feel like they're kind of apps. I don't know if the app is influencing the designers or subconsciously, but this kind of falls into that vibe. So I think if you have folks that you know, and you know, you're kind of a hardcore board gamer type, then they like the different phone apps, then I would definitely give this one a shot, because it's very much, you know, kind of that city building kind of vibe as well, which a lot of those apps kind of go into. But I have a lot of fun with it as well. So definitely take a look at Quadropolis. Thanks.